They they did just add support for allowing you to use services like StreamYard
Okay.
and like external services in conjunction with Substack. So you can like run a live on your computer through StreamYard to
Okay.
Substack,
Because
but
that's
the
not complicated at
configuration,
all. Yeah.
yes, it's so easy to set up, you know?
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
completely works providing you have the tape
Mm, yeah.
and the publication or what I've been writing about.
Mhm.
And just because I am sitting at a cabin now in a Norwegian fjord, so if my connection ever gets a little funny, wave your hands for me, right?
Okay.
But this is
Yeah.
Norway, so it's 5G everywhere.
I think you're okay right now. You dropped a
Okay.
little bit, but but yeah, Dominic, maybe on Substack, what you're writing about. Um, yeah.
I realized that if you end up doing what other people are doing, you'll end up like them.
Mhm.
And I was working in a number of I'm fortunate that I've worked in a lot of different companies and different roles, and I didn't like what I saw. My future, it's not kinda what I wanted to stay and become the VP of something or to be leading some corporate team. But what I did like is I saw all of the people who I've found myself connecting to all wrote online.
Yeah.
And so 4 years ago, I started writing and I just said, "I'm gonna publish every day, just so I can build a habit for myself." And I wrote about anything. One of the posts is like, "This is why you don't write drunk." But it was just, "Hey, I'm getting it out there. I'm starting."
Yeah.
And then over time, I started to, and this is what's been fun recently, is having like doing deep research, but on my Substack to be like, "Hey, what themes am I writing about?" And
Mhm.
it was only a couple months ago when I met someone through Substack and we are having a conversation, and they had said, "Oh yeah, I looked at a bunch of your articles, and it's cool that you write about family, you write about design, you write
Mm,
about leadership, about building things, and you're kind of experimenting in the open."
mm,
And I'd never really thought that I'd been writing those themes. He said, "Yeah, and I can see in your last 4 essays, you are merging all of these together. You're taking a story of your life and building something." Or that time, I was writing this piece earlier today, "Stop Polishing Turds," talking about
wow.
design. And
That's a good title. Yeah.
so we'll see. I've a habit now of I've gotten better at editing, I think. People can be the judge of that. But
Mm,
I've started to overthink, and so I'm getting there. I'm getting there with time.
yeah.
But the Substack for me was just a way to share what I had on my mind at the time, right?
Mm,
Build up a habit. And anytime I found myself going into meetings and saying the same thing 5 times in a row, like, "Oh, well, this is how you should do this with your team," or "Here's a way that we could." I started to be like, "Okay, I've talked about this 5 times to different people. I'm gonna write about it." And I just would mention it and share an article. I worked with this consultant once who had pitched us some framework and then just dropped us the link. He's like, "Here's the article and a template." And I thought, "That's such a boss move." I like that.
yeah.
And so at the time, at least, that was kind of my thinking. I'll write and I'll figure out what it is. I'm still figuring out what it will be,
Yeah.
but my background, I started as a designer. Um, I worked building physical products, then digital products, then services, startups, corporate. I spent 7 years building agricultural tools for fertilizer and crop nutrition.
Wow. Wow.
And
Mm,
one of the most frustrating places I've had the privilege to work because everything is extremely nuanced. And it's old and traditional, and I like that. So then vibe coding just felt like a hallelujah because
you're right.
all these things was like, "Oh, if only we could just," and I'm like, "Oh,
Right.
I've made it. I just made it." And I realized I didn't before we started, we said, "Okay, the question would be to introduce yourself a little bit." I kinda just told stories rather than giving a succinct intro, but I think it's coming across.
Yeah.
I'm,
Mm.
Charlie Breaker, he just had this post, which I reposted, leading into the weirdest thing that feels right. And I don't know, I'm weird. I tried to do what other people did for a while, and it worked, right?
You
But
know,
it didn't
I
feel
can
right.
resonate. I can resonate with that so much because, uh, Indie Thinkers is a publication on Substack that aims to showcase all the great writers on the internet and to elevate individual writers and to help
Yeah,
them grow their audiences. But there's also a forum component. And you would ask, why would you build a forum in 2025? That's like crazy, and it feels kind of weird. Um, but it also feels right because, um, you think about how so many of us are exhausted by having to feed these machines that we're engaged with, whether that's Twitter, whether that's Substack, and having to be online all the time,
yeah,
and how exhausting that can be.
yeah.
Um, I think Max Pete, who's a great writer that I admire, wrote
Max
the other
Pete?
day. Max Pete, yeah.
Okay.
He writes a lot about community. He's remarkable, and he said that social media can feel so exhausting and overwhelming,
Yeah,
sometimes. And it's just like, and we all know that, but it was just like helpful to see someone put it out there and just like a reminder, like, yeah, it can be really draining, right? And what I like about forums in general is they're asynchronous by design, right? If you write a comment on a forum, there's no expectation that in 5 minutes someone's gonna like it or someone's
yeah,
gonna retweet it or restack it, right? You conjure up some thoughts, you put it out there, and it just sits, and then you can come back whenever you want,
yeah.
right?
I feel
And
Substack's
yeah,
a bit like that in some ways,
in
but
some way, yeah. Mhm,
in the other way,
mhm,
and I'm interrupting, but I'll continue because 'cause I've already started. The whole, like, feeding the machine, it makes me
mhm.
think of Snow Crash. I'll give away some of the book, but if people haven't read it, the first chapter is weird. If you get past the Astronova, Boston, whatever corporate pizza thing and samurais, you're like, "Alright, cool."
Yeah,
But this idea that we are the biomass that is feeding a machine,
yeah,
and that these machines only will run if you keep feeding on them, and so they're feeding on you. Now, a different context in the book, and it's not physically eating, but
yeah,
I see that parallel all the time now, and that book was 1992, I
yeah.
think. And so
That actually
anytime I'm like,
does happen.
"Ah."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That on Twitter, that actually does happen. Like, if you stop posting, the algorithm just thinks you're a ghost, and then
yeah,
you could stop for maybe a couple days, right? Maybe you don't wanna be on Twitter on the weekend. You wanna spend time with your family, you wanna get outside and enjoy the lake and the mountains, right? You wanna go on a nice hike. You come back on Monday and you publish something and no one sees it, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
"Oh, this person, like, tapped out," right? They're no longer engaged. But it's like, "Wait, I just took a 2-day break. Like, why are you
uh,
punishing me?" Right?
I'm just exhaling. The
Right.
I haven't used social media too much. Okay,
Mhm,
use social media. I haven't really been on Twitter. I made like 3 or 4 accounts, forgetting my logins all the time. And before we started, I talked about how it feels weird for me to post on LinkedIn. Even
mhm.
though, like, yeah, okay, I've got experience, I could talk about it. It just feels like a weird echo chamber, which is something I will get over soon. But with Substack, I just kept posting, right? This is again before notes.
Yeah.
So I was just doing something every day for a little while. And then I went a couple months without. And so, like, I'm 4 years in,
Yeah.
and I'm like, if there is an algorithm in Substack, I'm definitely messed with it because I went like long periods of time since sign up and starting. And it's great when people say, like, oh, yeah, been here 30 days and I have 1,000 followers. I'm like, that's great. I'm four
Mhm.
years in. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
Um, but I did have this completely unexpected. I was in London visiting a friend, and I was outside
Mhm.
the, I was on the river, and I just caught this photo
Mm.
completely by chance, like very much like, oh, snap picture, like would have missed it with an older phone, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Cropped it later and was like, oh, this is cool. And then it went on to get thousands of likes and shared. And it's like not the things I've spent hours writing and rewriting and editing,
Yeah.
but it was cool to see that was possible.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
And now a lot of what I'm writing has been I'm trying to take stories of things that I've done, or if I find myself talking about things, um, and trying to weave in a lesson and something actionable, right?
Mm,
An
yeah.
example, like I took building products isn't just business, it's dating, and you're acting like a bad boyfriend. And I just compare going on a date and just talking about yourself and how great you are versus going and listening and seeing what they want. And because I don't know,
Mm,
having worked in a bunch of different types of design, so industrial, service, whatever, um, UX, UI, choose your acronym. I'm like, this is all the same thing. Like,
yeah.
design is putting thought into action. So if technology is anything we make to solve a problem or fulfill a need, design is putting thought into action. How do you do that? Well, choose your material, choose your role or name, product managers, designers, researchers, content designers, interaction designers, and the Venn diagram of it all. They're
Mm,
just different gears that are all trying to do the same thing on the factory line that is now outdated.
yeah.
And so I've got a lot of these thoughts, and trying to get only one thought per essay has me publishing slower. But it's fun.
Yeah. No, that's I love that. I think how you've come to this point in your journey as a writer is probably how everyone should start, right? You hear a lot of advice around, picking a niche,
Yeah.
but you also can discover your niche
Yeah.
over time, right? And I think that process of discovering the core kind of pillars that you want to pursue
Yeah.
on a recurring basis um, is the best approach and probably the most sustainable approach to building your own publication.
Yeah. And I think for me, the publication is almost like, I don't want to say secondary, but it's something I really enjoy. Like
Yeah.
this writing, in a lot of cases, okay, it's for me, sure, but it is really nice to have thought about something for a while and be able to have a conversation and be like, oh, here you go. Let me go find that. And that's what I
Yeah.
meant about trying to weave in stories and things that are helpful.
Yeah.
And Tim Denning does a lot of writing online. And so following his school of thought and what he's doing. And this is a great way to meet people. Like
Yep.
even that one photo, I just reached out to people and like I haven't done it to all. There's a couple hundred people I got to write now. But like, hey, thank you for restocking this. What are you
Yeah.
working on this week? And I've met, some nice photographers, someone who's doing gardening, and like it's not all business. Maybe it'll turn into something.
Mhm.
And we can talk on what we're doing soon, but I don't know, it feels a little bit more human, right?
Yeah.
I am still spending time staring at black glass and talking,
Right. Yeah.
but I don't know, not all technology has to be a bad thing. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
Dark
And I
view, but
just
I
want to
think you
touch
know what I'm
on
trying to say
your
there.
comment about building these digital assets that you can share with potential clients and people that you meet on the internet
Yeah.
as a way to build authority and to earn trust, right? If someone
Mhm.
is like, hey, I'm struggling with how to solve this particular design challenge, and you've
Yeah.
written about that already, and you just send them an essay, that's incredible, right? That is, you don't need to sell that person a product.
Yeah.
They'll come to you when you want something and be like, hey, I actually think this is something that I could benefit from. Could you maybe tell me a little bit more about it? Right?
Yeah.
You're almost doing, when you're sending that essay to help someone, it's almost like a version of outbound, like sales in
Yeah.
a way, where it's like you're just saying, hey, check this out. I think you'll benefit from it. And if they do,
Yeah.
that's better than any cold call, any cold email you could possibly send, right?
There's Sean Perry was on a podcast with David Perel, and there's one of these things I listened to it so many times, I took notes. Same kind of thing. I'm like, all right, I've done this 5 times, or I don't think I watched the whole thing 5 times, but general
Yeah.
idea.
Mm.
And I started writing it down. And one of the points that came out of that, and part of my thinking on why I'm like, cool, it'd be great if something got a lot of likes and more people came to follow me, but secondary. Um, was the idea of creating a Binge Bank. So
Mm,
you find that TV show you like, you're like, I want everything on this. So hopefully I'm writing these little notes. People will see that and they say, okay, that's cool. And they see that I'm building XYZ, whatever. And then like, who is this guy? And then there's this Binge Bank where they can dive into and be like, oh, designing stuff with satellites for farming, or don't polish turds, or dating and whichever, or me inviting people for dinner parties. And I posted this piece where I invited strangers to my house every month for 4 years and just kept having dinners. And I like writing about this, that idea, not all the design stuff where I think I'm smart. That one, I had a
mm,
bunch of people like a couple months later be like, hey, you still haven't written that thing. I'm like, okay, okay, I'll go do it.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
and so to your earlier point about the feeding the machine, in a way, I think calling assets maybe they
mm,
are
yeah.
assets. Maybe it
Yep.
sounds funny to my head, but you're building
Right.
these things so that people
Yep.
can find it and they're like, oh, I like this guy. It can also
Mm.
go bad. They'll find it and they'll say, hey, who is this dude? Thinks he's clever.
You could,
But
yeah.
the way
You
I
could
see it is
also,
like, this is where I live. You
yeah.
know, I'm not gonna step out and meet people, so I've gotta meet people online. It was kind of a
Mm,
very intentional point to be like,
yeah.
I'm gonna double down on this. I wanna meet more people
Yeah.
so that and I ramble here, but my trip to London was the first time that kinda happened. I met someone through my writing, and we got brunch in London, and they brought this book, and we chatted. I'm like, "Alright, these are these ideas. None of them are good." And they're like, "All of those are good, except that one. Go do those." And so that was it felt like, okay, it's not like that paid for me to fly here or do
Yeah.
anything, but it was like it steps in a direction that I like.
Yeah.
And if you are if you do what other people do, you end up like them. And so I'm like, all right, at least this is taking steps in a direction that I really like.
Yeah.
And when I look back over the last couple months, I'm like, okay, there's like 6, 7 essays there. Some or a couple months, not 1 month.
Yeah. We could also frame assets as breadcrumbs in a way
Yeah,
where it's like you're just putting these breadcrumbs on the internet and people will, pick up one and kind of lead it'll lead to, kind of your base camp in a way. And
yeah,
um, I always love when someone replies to an email or hit me up with a DM just randomly.
yeah,
And the thing about it is it's not random, right?
yeah,
You put something out on the internet that resonated with them, that helped them,
yeah,
and it led them to that specific action, you know?
yeah.
So, no.
Well, you were doing that with indie thinkers, right? Like you had
Yeah.
I think the first thing I saw of yours was something about Cursor and then Claude Code,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "That looks sick. How did you do this, this, and this, and this?" And
Yeah,
I went and yeah,
I think that was the interview mode essay I wrote. I was lamenting about how these tools are amazing, but, you know, months ago, they didn't do a good job of interviewing you and asking you clarifying questions before it ran off
yeah,
and started building things. Now, since then, all of these tools have improved remarkably, and it's now even Claude Code, if you, ask it to build, you know, um, or to boil the ocean, basically,
yeah,
it'll break that down into concrete to-dos, and, like, it understands, "Hey, you're actually asking me to build this entire application, not, like, one small little thing, and so
yeah.
I need to, like, enumerate all the different tasks, and then I'll spin out sub-agents to tackle them," right? And that's incredible. Um, yeah.
I think that's something I would like to nerd out with you on. I haven't gone into that world
Mhm,
yet. I've been building a lot with other tools and just choosing a project and being like, "Okay, the next couple days, I'm just building this."
mhm.
But
Yeah,
you'd said something, and I was just listening to you, and I forgot what came to mind, but it'll come back.
yeah. Well, you're tinkering with a lot. You're, an accomplished designer, obviously, and
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
curious what what is top of mind for you when it comes to tinkering, little side projects that you're exploring? Maybe tools that you're considering building for yourself or for others?
Um, there's a few things. So I'll set like context of my tinkering, and I'll get into a few of them. One is in April. So April 1st was my first day after leaving a company. I'd been with them since 2018, going from like a handful of
Wow.
people to a couple hundred. And from my day started in Singapore, ended in Sao Paulo with teams in between. And I thought like, why am I going to an office in Berlin and not seeing people? Like, hey, do you want to get a falafel at lunch? Meanwhile, up here, I have the in-laws. And so we came up here and I'm like, doesn't really matter. But now I've left that job and I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And so that's part of it.
Mm.
Um, that, but leaving that, I was very fortunate that I was able to leave on very, very good terms, and sort of gave me a good chunk of runway.
Nice.
And so I outlined what I called my personal postgrad. Like, if I were to start my career today with everything that I know and all the things that I've done, what would I do? And I outlined a little bit of Dominik's AI curriculum, but also sales, um, because and I made the comment earlier about the gears and the gearbox at the assembly line of a business. Like, those gears are getting further and further apart. They have for years. Like, when I'm going to go on a slight tangent and come back, but as soon as we started having design systems, like
Mm.
Figma design components, and even just like using different libraries and like Tailwind, I'm like, awesome. Interfaces are automated. We finally don't have to deal with that stuff. I wrote this
Yeah.
piece a couple years ago about a product experience pyramid where at a very foundation level, you have all this stuff that like no one comes to you because they're like, did you know you could sign up? So good. I love that. Or you can reset your password. No one cares. It's kind of an expectation.
Mm.
And so there's all these system level experiences, your customer support, training, onboarding, no one cares. It's so long having debates. And I'm like, none of this matters. Go to Clerk, sign up one, free for your first 10,000 or 100. I don't remember a
Yeah.
lot, enough. And we've kind of moved past all of these things. And then you get to your core product experience where that's like, what's the main reason they're coming to your product? And what's the secondary reason? That main reason, let's use Miro, an online whiteboarding tool. Secondary, you can use it with other people. But if I'm like, hey, there's this thing on the internet, you can use it with other people, they're like, right? They do have to stack up. And then you have your really advanced stuff. And I noticed that working with these companies, they're like, we want this advanced, some nitrogen alert system based on weather. And I'm like, cool, but like your customers are ordering with the fax machine. Like maybe we be able to see your orders. You have to make your way up.
Mm.
And so it's sort of like the Cano model of something reference. But regardless, I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. And so
Mm.
having this time, I thought, okay, I want to learn about sales. I want to learn about design in a little bit more of a way. We still also doing some courses in behavior design and psychology to say, like, what does it mean now that the bottleneck isn't development? We live in the time of magic. Think about everyone trying to collect prompts. I like
Yeah.
to like, it's called spelling for a reason. And I'm like, okay, it's cute. But we're in the time of magic. So if the bottleneck is no longer development, it then very quickly becomes decision making.
Yes.
And part of me is like, I spent so much of my time figuring out how to build. And now it's like, what's the right thing to build? Where I've done a lot, but not in the same sense. And so I've been really doubling down in that direction. Right.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
as I learned the tools, I built things like, I should make this one public because I loved it. All right. I really like it. It's Vibe Check. It's a WhatsApp analysis. So I
Mm.
uploaded all of the chat with me and my fiance, and it creates like an emoji cloud. The sentiment analysis. I learned that with my brother, I'm a 23% casual ghoster. Just like funny, right?
That's
Everything in
awesome.
your browser, all of this. And so when we go to like, all right, what am I excited about?
Mm.
Um, I don't have one big, hey, let's go build this great product, or I would already be doing that.
Yeah.
But I do know that something I've been playing with recently is I think I feel comfortable saying that I'm very good in ambiguous spaces. And
Mm.
you're like, hey, everything is very loose. We don't know what's going to happen. Can you help this team move forward and build something? Right? Because good is relative. I like this quote from Basecamp, like the perfect meal could be a 10-course dinner. But if you're hungry and in a hurry, a hot dog's perfect. And
Mm.
so oftentimes, think about that top of the pyramid. They're like, we want this. And I was like, you guys have hot dog money. Like, let's settle down now, right? We're not going
Yep.
to do that. That's 10 years or, whatever. Timelines make no sense anymore in the sense of how fast things are changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have these little ideas that I want to build, but also things that I've been thinking of teaching because
Mm.
I used to lead teams of teams, and someone had pointed out to me because they just saw me vibe coding. Someone I was doing work with. He's like, hey, can we get on call and you just like walk me through what you're doing?
Yeah.
Even just like for a non-technical person.
Mm.
My fiance works with a university, so commercializing research, and they're talking about vibe coding.
Yeah.
And I know other people. I'm like, okay. So one very loose idea I have is I've outlined it a little bit with Manus and some of my own thoughts, but I would like to create a like 90-minute workshop where you come in and you will leave with your first product in 90 minutes. Like that's the goal for people to just see what's possible. And for years, I would talk about conversation concepts. So it's
Mm.
slightly different. You've probably heard of speculative design of like, what could the future be? Not that, right? That's like a lot of thought, really thinking. A conversation concept is like, what if we like built like a home app where I could have all of the rooms, number of rooms, and what types of floors we have, number of people, and you would make me an app that told me what I had to do every day to clean my house. And you just put that all on one screen. It makes no sense to do that, but you could show it to somebody and have a conversation. They're like, "Oh, I don't want that. I want someone to clean my house for me." You're like, "Ah, right."
Yeah.
Little idea I actually thought of. And so building these ideas, I spent time I used to research. Now I just deep research. It's a little bit, right? But I'm like, what libraries? Like, is there any like scholarly format for like what is best practices for house cleaning? Ends up there is. So it might be something I build just for myself because I'm an adult and I should have a cleaner house and I can blame it on having a kid, but it's me. It's definitely me. And so that's part of it. So there's this vibe coding part of it and one thought to teach, but I'm really excited because I'm not excited about AI because it's fast. Like, what are you rushing for? Like,
Yeah.
exhale.
Right.
Everyone's been sprinting forever. Like, chill, right? Um, I don't know if people disagree. I'd love to hear it, but that's kind of my thought. It's great that you can go fast, but another thing I was writing about, I did this. I got so frustrated working in a corporate that I was prototyping something with a friend. They were featured on OpenAI's blog or something at some point. They'd introduced GPT-3 years ago into this
Mm.
tool for prototyping game dialogue. Kind of like you could create like this non-linear dialogue that you could play and it would prompt based on characters. It was kind of cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was teaching myself Ruby, like building views and doing the designs and then giving him the
Yeah.
coded views. And I spent like I got up at 5, worked in the evenings, and my fiance was very patient, or then girlfriend, and you know, didn't end up panning out. It was a
Mm.
great project, and it
Yeah.
took me months. I did that in less than 3 minutes, just with like a, "Hey, can you build this?" It's like, "Oh my god." And that's
Yeah.
what's exciting, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
But
I have
you're right. The
one
bottleneck is decision making, right?
yeah, and there may be 2 little rambles here, so
Mhm.
if you'll bear with me.
Mm.
I grew up in a house with a wood stove. So,
Mm.
my parents are German, which is why I look like this and have this name, but I grew up in Canada, which is why I sound like this, and winters are cold. And my siblings and I would spend a lot of time collecting sticks and wood, and I think that was partly to keep us busy.
Mm.
But, whoever woke up first would just light the fire type thing. One of these cast iron stove things just was kinda a nice
Yeah.
thing. And I remember when we ended up moving and I had a thermostat where I could just push the button, how excited I was.
Mm,
We now have a thermostat. You're like, I want this idea. I wanted warm. I didn't want collect the sticks, cut the wood, stack the wood, make it dry. We have thermostats. And that's really exciting. And so these are the kind of things that I want to write more about. And also the like, yeah, sure. Like, cool. Now you can build 1,000 ideas and be confused. Right? That's not
right.
going to help. Right? It's still the same problem. Um, just now more people are in play. And so I'm a little ramble there. But it's exciting.
Yeah.
And like that vibe coding or even indie thinkers, you might not have built if you had to spend months and months
Right.
refining your idea. It's often going back to conversation concepts. You spend time to build something and then you get so caught up in the building of that. You're like, wait, well, this is actually not what we wanted. It was that.
Mm,
So bit of a
yeah.
side tangent.
I I love I love the idea of um, you know, building so many things and getting confused, right? I love that idea for honestly an essay. I think you should write about that because
Like
right when you when you have so much power, uh, just going back to your thermostat kind of metaphor, um, why would you go to the thermostat and change the temperature every 5 minutes? You know, you know, just because you can, right? And when you start getting into you know uh, product development in 2025, right? You can tinker and tweak and iterate like so fast that you could spin your wheels changing something that actually worked well and was fine and that you didn't need to change, right? Like the temperature is 72
yeah,
degrees and
yeah,
it's fine, but you're like, maybe I need to make it 78. And like, oh, it's too warm. I need to make it 74. And it's like, no,
yeah.
72 is fine. You should just left it alone, right?
And this also where I think it comes into all right, I can divide it up in two ways. So one, you have like the thermostat is great because the outcome you want is warm,
Mm,
right? People want to be warm. And so you know that. But figuring out actually what it is people want, maybe it's not a thermostat, it's that other thing. And so what's really nice is and like part of the like finicky uh fidgeting was something that didn't
yeah.
need to be fixed.
Yeah.
I was working on this project a couple years ago, probably more years ago than I'd like to admit. And the whole idea was that in farming, when you put fertilizer in the field, we built a tool that based on the light, on the reflectance of light, you could see how much nitrogen there was. And then you'd make a file, it goes in the tractor, cool, it talks. But not everyone has that expensive equipment. But everyone has a smartphone. We know where the phone is in the field. So it's like, well, the math checks out to drive faster or drive slower, right? By the way, driving really fast in a field is not awesome, right? There's flaws to this idea. But what worked was being able to adjust opening and closing a valve. You know, it goes in 10%, whatever.
Mm,
And the details that are not important for this story. But what was is I was so invested in this thing. It needed to look this way. It needed to work this way, 100%.
mm,
Flash forward a couple of years, right? We didn't end up building it. We built something simpler. I'm talking to this guy in South Africa. Yeah, doesn't matter. We was talking to this guy and he was walking me through how he's using these tools. And the only thing this dude wanted was to show a blue dot of where he was in the field. Like pretty much that was it. And so I was so caught up on all of this other stuff, but he
mhm,
really just wanted that, show him where he was in relation to growth. And
mm,
if you think about the amount of time it takes to go from your hypothesis, right? What do we believe to be true? And I talked about design as being putting thought into action. Well, thought is an assumption. So you have your hypothesis. How do I put that into action?
yeah.
Great. And what's so exciting about our new world of witchcraft is we can spin that up so quickly and then you can test it. the conversation concept no longer needs to be a conversation concept. Like I make
Mhm.
things in Replit. I send the link to a buddy on WhatsApp,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, by the way, this didn't work." I'm like, "Cool."
Yeah.
Um, or like, I have no idea what this is. I did that with my website. I made my website with Replit recently. I
Yeah.
tried to build it with Cursor and Airtable and all this, and
Mhm.
ended up going to Replit and built my own CMS tools rather than using Airtable.
Yeah.
I think it cost me like 15, 14, somewhere in there. And a friend sent me a message. It's really confusing your accordions. You don't show that I can open it.
Mm.
And so I took his screenshot, put it into Replit, and said, "Hey, I'd like to improve the interaction here. Can you walk me through how you would approach it?" I always like to have it tell me what it would do before it does it, or at least
Mhm.
try. And I'm like, let's go with option one, which is what I wanted to just show little arrows, anyways. But so much of what we've done, nerd fest here a little, is we spent billions of dollars building these things, anyways.
Yeah.
So, like, why not just reuse what is already there? I don't need to reinvent it.
Yeah.
And that's where I talk about that system level, that base level. Like, so much of that's there. Let's use it.
Yes.
And
100%.
so I've been rambling a little bit, but it's been a nice ramble. What are you working on next?
Yeah.
Where's your thoughts? Where are you
Um,
taking this?
so the the idea that's top of mind for me with indie thinkers is uh kind of stealing an idea from um I'm not sure if you're familiar with Emily Sandberg. She
Not.
has the publication Feed Me.
Yeah.
It's readfeedme.com, I believe. And
Okay.
she has this concept of a guest lecture. And so she'll bring in someone, an entrepreneur, designer, writer, kind of spans the full gamut of
Yeah.
uh, people that are generally admired on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And she'll interview them, and then she'll kind of publish the interview, and she'll allow her readers to ask questions
Yeah.
to the guest lecturers. And I love that concept for guest posts on Indie Thinkers.
Yeah.
And the challenge I have is uh, incentivizing writers to uh, participate in
Yeah.
this. And one thing I am, considering, and one thing I am adamant about is I do feel that creators need to be paid, right? And
Yeah.
so one idea was, what if in exchange for being a guest lecturer on Indie Thinkers paid for an annual subscription of your
Mhm.
publication, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of this, you know, um,
It's like at least a token payment that isn't a token payment, right? Like
yeah,
it's
it's
yeah.
like this. I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it, but it's like this uh, kind of feedback loop that stays within the Substack ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
I don't need you to send me an invoice, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like on PayPal, or I'm like on this external system, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, like
Great. More
dealing
work
with
to
all that,
post
right?
trying to do something here. Yeah.
It's like, well, why don't I just subscribe to your publication and pay for an annual subscription,
Yeah.
uh, and remind people of how valuable that is, right? And how
Yeah.
helpful that could be. Now, the only downside is a lot of people aren't running paid newsletters on Substack, right? So you're kind of excluding people that aren't doing that. Um, yeah,
The If it's alright with me critiquing your thinking a
yeah,
little, or
mhm,
like adding yes, anding this,
yeah,
uh, I like that idea. When I was, with this last company, we had people come talk every 2 months,
mhm,
right? So just different teams. A lot of the times it was free, right? But
mhm,
we had it in the sense of like, "Hey, come test your talk," right? Or like,
mhm,
"Hey, come test your talk, come do this." I then reached out to a lot of these people afterwards and was like, "Hey, disagree with that. Can we talk on this?" And that was fun. And I think in some cases, you're not necessarily paying,
mhm,
um, but it's a way to sort of um, test a direction. But there's also, depending on if you have certain themes, there's probably companies that are really interested in hearing or like trying out some of these things. And you
Yeah.
could, right? I've just never done sponsorship of things.
Right.
Right? Closest I've gotten to that is like skateboarding, but that's a different world altogether. Um, and
Yeah.
so
Mm.
I like the idea, but I don't know how hung up you'd have to be on it being paid. The idea of like, hey, I'll pay it forward is also a great way for you to get paid subscribers potentially
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
can frame it like, hey, every time we do this, I pay like an annually whatever,
Right.
and it's very
Yeah.
clearly laid out. You
Yeah.
start with it. If you want to support this, you pay for that. That way, you're not out of pocket. Like it will get
Oh,
a little bit,
yeah. That
but
that
like,
is absolutely the vision is like to make these essays um either gated to paid
yeah,
subscribers.
yeah,
That's like one incentive, right? It's like, hey, you can pay $10 a month
yeah,
for indie thinkers, and we would uh, invest in paying writers, right? Because like
yeah,
that is the thing we strongly believe in, right? That is
yeah,
a core principle that we believe in,
yeah.
and so um, absolutely that is something we would do.
You also have it, and I've seen other people doing this, and I've heard people doing this, is just creating like an offer stack where it's you get access to this tool, you get this tool, you get discounts on this. And there's a lot of Notion took down their affiliate program, but there was ways where you could say, hey, you get this if you do that.
Yeah,
So not only do they get access to this, but they also get access to all of these other tools that you would normally subscribe to. And
yeah,
it would take a little bit of research to figure out what would fit or
yeah,
even talking to the audience, but I think that's a nice idea.
yeah,
And I haven't thought much of monetizing my Substack at all. Like I have that paywall there.
yeah.
That's kind of a default, and if it happens, great. You know, my
Yeah.
brother is a contributor, and I woke up the other day and I thought there was a bug in Substack because it's like you have paid subscribers. I was like, what? And so, and I have a message. I reach out to them because I'm essentially, hey, you're paying me,
Yeah,
thank you, but thanks for supporting this. But if there's a topic that you've seen me write about, you want to hear more of, please let me know. Like, don't hesitate.
yeah,
Or if you're in a challenge right now where you think I have a perspective, let me know. I'll write an essay about it.
yeah,
Um, we'll see if they reply. But I think that's a nice idea.
yeah.
I played with the form you built, the Indie Thinkers forum,
Mhm.
and I feel there's a friction problem with like
Mm,
adding input in, right? Like I
yeah,
have this somewhere else. It's not necessarily like a Chrome plugin where I'm like, oh, this is sick. This is for
right.
right.
Mhm.
Um, as an idea, but it's because when I first came across it, I'm like, "Oh, do you want us to write here or do you want us to link to other things?" And then as more people started using it, I was like, "Ah, this is an aggregate
Yes.
of
Yeah.
all of these other things." And so there's a flywheel friction problem there on like getting
Mhm.
it in. And so it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this already or is it
So that's a great question. So, one thing that I believe in is intentional friction.
Yeah.
And so someone wrote an essay recently about how it's sometimes too easy to subscribe to a
Yeah.
newsletter, right? And I don't want to make it too easy for people to just dump links and essays into indie thinkers because
Yeah.
it's not a volume game that I'm playing. It's a quality game, and
Yeah.
so I'd actually prefer there to be less links shared,
Yeah.
but I'd rather there to be more discussion. Like if there were only 5 links shared a day
Yeah.
versus the hundreds that are shared on Hacker News, for example, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'd
That's what it
prefer,
reminded me of. I was like, this is a
yeah,
hacker news format. This is a, yeah.
yes. Hacker News has like hundreds, maybe thousands of posts shared on a daily basis. I'd actually rather only see 10 or 20, but to see a deep amount of discussion, right?
Conversations. Yeah.
And engagement. And so, one thing that I also want to do with this guest lecture concept is after the essay has been published, to do an interview with the writer, um, but I'd also like to host like an AMA in the forum.
Mhm. Yeah,
And so if you read a piece from someone and you're like, "Oh my god, this is incredible," like being able to ask them questions and have a guaranteed response, like in this AMA
yeah,
forum is something that I want to try as well. You'll notice like for writers sometimes you might comment on something and there's just so many comments like they struggle to respond or they just don't.
yeah,
But being able to ask a question and know you'll get an answer is like there's a value at there, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
So would you wanna
Hmm. That's a good
I
question though.
see it
I
a little
appreciate
bit.
your feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other is, how do you define quality?
Hmm. Yeah.
Just because a quality piece could look very different, and I wonder, okay, intentional friction is great,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But having that also be very fairly clearly understood, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because when I came across it the first time, I didn't see it. I was like, "All right, he's still in progress. This is great."
Yes.
But to know when to get here. But I think you having a regular
Mm,
um,
mm.
readfeedme.com, yeah, that format, for lack of better terms, I think is a
Yeah.
nice idea.
Okay.
Even if it was just a video call, similar to something like this.
Yeah.
Maybe here's a couple things. And something I haven't seen done is an Ask Me Anything, where then they write an essay based on everything discussed, right?
Mm,
Um, but
mm.
there could be a reason they don't do that, right?
It could be fun to experiment as like a
Yeah.
generative way to develop an essay.
Yeah. One other thing I've been playing with, and so I'm trying to write this out, and because I talked about not monetizing my Substack, but I see it as a way to connect and meet people.
Mhm.
And then I've done this with one or two things. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. If you're interested, hit reply. And it sort of pre-qualifies people themselves to say, hey, okay,
Yeah.
you're interested in me doing this. There's one where I said, okay, I'm going to write what I believe is still valuable in design. Because maybe hearing me speak, I don't talk in terms of UX, UI, like none of that matters,
Mm.
right? Sometimes the best interface is to not make one at all. And so if you tell me, oh yeah, I make building interfaces, that's the same thing. Everything looks like a nail if all you have is a
Yep.
hammer, right? The original side tangent, but we'll come back. The original definition of user experience design, which I'll paraphrase slightly, is a customer's interaction with a brand.
Mm.
So from the packaging, the getting it home, the interacting with customer support, that has never been more valuable ever. More people than ever can now build. So I see there being a massive explosion of people walking through the Dunning-Kruger effect,
Mm.
right? It's this idea that people don't realize how stupid they are. That guy
Yep.
in
Yeah.
99 or 95 who covered his face in lemon and robbed a bank. Right? It's
Yeah.
just kind of, but he took a picture and he didn't see himself in the picture because there wasn't film in the camera or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And so it's something I want to write about. We're all now standing on what these researchers, was it cognitive bias researchers called the peak of Mount Stupid. We have
Mm.
all of these new tools. We're at the peak of Mount Stupid. How do you know what's next? And a couple of things that clicked for me, and I kind of wish I was recording this because it'd be nice to look at my notes, but you know, for the future.
Oh, I'll
Peak of
definitely
Mount
share
Stupid.
this. I'll show you this. I'll share the
Oh,
screen transcript. Yeah. Hmm.
oh,
It's
amazing.
recording.
I
Yeah.
didn't go
Yeah. It's
team.
recording. Yeah.
Technology.
Mhm.
You're at the peak of Mount Stupid. And what happens is, uh, or maybe a little side is over time, as you start doing and learning more about the subject, I think the axis is, um, I should have brought this up before I mentioned it. Your confidence level, and the other one is, if anyone listening remembers this, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it's competency, confidence of
Ah, yes.
competency. And
Yeah.
so when you start, and I remember being a junior designer, I'm like, I'm the best. And then, I
Yes.
got my first job, first produced product, look at me. And then over time, you're like, I know nothing. You go to another studio and you're
Yes.
like, I am so bad at everything. And I get really
Right.
good. I'm like, I can 3D model and render. And then I go somewhere else and they just sketch. And I'm like, I'm not worth the money you don't pay me. And then it keeps going. But you get to a certain point where you build competency and you get to the other side.
Mhm.
And there's this designer, Kevin. I always want to say Bacon. It's not Bacon. It's not canon. Point is, there's this guy. I met him and he gave this talk about the confidence curve. And I
Mm,
like only recently I'm like, oh, it is the exact same flow of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
mm,
So designers, especially people who work in agencies, are extremely competent in being incompetent, which is super valuable. I have gone through building things and agriculture and insurance and health and consumer electronics, household products, where I know absolutely nothing, but are able to build and move through. So designers, I believe, are more and more valuable. And so you look at Y Combinator, they say there's going to be more and more design founders. And I'm like, yeah, that's partly why.
yeah.
They're well versed in making the intangible tangible.
Yeah.
And so part of my thinking, and this is what I got to for Dunning-Kruger, was I a skill set I have was leading teams of teams, oftentimes a bit dysfunctional. And so in theory, I could do that for a number of people who say, "Hey, let's all build our apps." Right?
Mhm.
Here's a structure. Let's go. Every week we'll have a call. I'll talk similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Walk you through. Here's some frameworks. This is it. This, and this, and we take steps forward. And so that's a way that I could build a business for myself, live
Mhm.
here, and essentially use my experience leading teams of teams and building products to do that.
Yeah.
And then you look at what Jake Knapp and these other guys are doing with their latest sprints. And so I was on a call with them, seeing what they're doing, and you're like, "Oh my god, that's totally what I did before, but you do it in 2 days and not 4.
Right.
This is so much cooler." And so I run a sprint for a workshop, and I just rescheduled to next week, but early stage startup. I'm going to run them through this workshop
Mm,
to be very clear on what's your core hypothesis.
yeah.
Because that's kind of, if you look at what it is, going from idea to act, putting thought into action is design. We're evaluating our hypotheses. People need to not think like builders, they need to think like scientists. All right, hypothesis, test, verify, replicate. And now I can do that with Replit. That rhymes nicely, but now, right, I can do that so quickly.
Mhm.
And you just need someone. Like, you don't need someone to tell you what's right. Sure, I can talk about visual hierarchy or like tell them what'll happen, tell them what's happening, tell them what just happened. But like, you just want to feel comfortable. And
Mhm.
so I'm spending time thinking about how could I create a cohort program to help people build these things.
I love that. Yeah.
Um, and just say, hey, it's $100 a week or whatever. Maybe that's not enough, but leave if you want. But and that it keeps me to be like as useful as possible. And do it in a small enough that I can spend the time doing all of that. And
I think that's a great idea, man. I I just realized I have to jump, but uh, this was amazing. Like we could go for another hour.
yeah.
um, but yeah, you're ending your day and I'm starting mine. It's
Yeah.
almost 8 a.m. here in Los Angeles.
I
Um,
appreciate you
but
having the early day. This is
oh
also,
yeah,
hold on,
this
I
is
gotta turn this around. This
oh
is
it's,
where I'm going off to. So I'm going to
it's
actually, there's a
incredible.
mountain, but it's the sun. I want to hike up that later with my son. And so we'll
Nice, amazing.
we'll get
Please
there.
enjoy, man. And yeah, keep me posted. I'll definitely be on the lookout for probably it sounds like a workshop might be coming soon. So
Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah,
do let's also talk after this. I'm
yeah,
happy to go through this. I'm right now, it's when thinking is the problem or thinking doesn't help. So I'm trying to write and look at my
yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
um, which is slightly infuriating at times. You write 5 pages to realize, be like, "Oh, that's not clever."
yeah,
But no, the only way out is through or whatever.
yeah, yep. Absolutely, dude.
Interesting claim or title here, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
dude.
it's been nice.
Cool.
I'd like to hear more about what you're doing. And so let's keep talking.
Absolutely. I'll definitely be in touch. And yeah, thanks so much again. And I'll share this probably tomorrow. Yeah.
That'll be great.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thanks, man.
Take
See ya.
care.
Bye.